Welcome again to American Christian or Christian American. This is episode 39. We have several things to talk about today, but first of all, I want to ask you to hit that subscribe button and hit that like button if you can. Help spread the videos around and help you to get the videos faster. This is a journey I'm taking, and I hope that we can take this journey together. I have a long clip to play this time. It's just going to be one clip. We're just going to talk about it. But it's kind of self-explaining to a point. We want to talk about the fact that because white supremacy in this country and around the world perpetuates lies in order to keep its power. Watch this clip together, and then we'll talk.
We have some white South Africans or Afrikaans refugees going to the US.
Refugee of what? Your life is incredible. What are you talking about?
There is a white genocide in South Africa.
White South Africans see themselves as the victims. It just doesn't make sense.
You as a South African know very well the situation on the ground. Can you tell me what's your feeling from your point of view?
This white South African refugee story is the dumbest I've ever heard. So this didn't start now. Right back in 2016, during Trump's first presidency, a bunch of white South Africans went to the White House and had a meeting with Trump. And they basically said, hey, we are being systematically targeted by this black population because of our ethnicity, and we are experiencing a genocide. And Trump put out some tweets right back then. But today, he's taking the most drastic actions. Trump announced that they would be welcoming white South Africans as refugees escaping this white genocide that's allegedly taking place in South Africa. So let's look at what's actually happening. We have to start with history, right? South Africa in 1913, I'm going to take you back a little bit, had something called the Native Land Act. In 1913, if you were black in South Africa, you were removed of all of your land, and it gets worse. You were later also removed of your nationality. You were no longer, you were black South African, and they're like, hey, you're not South African anymore. And all of that was given to white people. All the land was stolen from a population of 50 million people and given to white people. Now let's jump forward to 1994. South Africa celebrates democracy. Nelson Mandela is free, the first black South African elected president. And it's the most exciting thing ever, right? While black South Africans got their right to vote and their freedom to go to the same schools potentially and to walk on the same sidewalks and all these incredibly evil measures that apartheid had maintained, what they didn't get back was the land. So today, in 2025, white people in South Africa make up less than 20% of the population, but they own more than 80% of the land. A tiny minority of white people own the vast majority of the country. I'm talking farms, I'm talking mining, I'm talking about a black native population that for the most part are squatting in their own land. They don't even own the land below their feet. They're squatting, often illegally. Often the police and authorities come and say, you don't live here, you got to move on. They have nowhere to go. And it's this impossible situation where you're like, okay, well, what do you do where 80% of the country is owned by white people and they make up 20% of the population? Do you buy that land back? It would be, no country in the world could afford to do that, to buy back 80% of their country. Do you take that land back? It would scare away foreign investors. They'd be like, oh my God, South Africa is nationalizing just like Zimbabwe did under Robert Mugabe, right? So you can't take it back and you can't buy it back. So there's been a process of like basically willing buyer, willing seller, where the government are trying in part to redistribute wealth to black South Africans through the process of trying to buy it back. So that's the first thing to understand.
Sounds very genocidal to me.
Yeah, it's madness to call this a genocide. What, genocide where you own the entire country? And like, you know, there are still today, if I'm in Cape Town and many parts of South Africa, there are still many restaurants and coffee shops and clubs that I'll go to where I'm the only person of color who's not working there. There is still a slave-master relationship where white people control that economy so tightly and are so affluent and are so privileged for the most part. Okay, so there's this huge, that just sets the scene to say, like, yeah, what refugee of what? Your life is incredible. What are you talking about? The second bit is then, these white farmers are showing images to Trump and to those that care to listen and saying, look at these images. And these images are horrific, right? They show farm murders, people that are getting attacked on these properties. And they're saying, we are being attacked because we are white. There's a few things to say there. One, when you look at the statistics, when you look at the actual numbers in South Africa, according to official reports from the police, firstly, white people are not disproportionately impacted by violent crime. In fact, black South Africans experience the most murders. So there's not this disconnect where like white people are disproportionately getting murdered more than anybody else as a percentage. It's just not true. What is the case is they often have these massive plots of land. They often live on these farm properties with their wine farms and all this luxury. And they are often very easy targets in a very, very unequal society where the poor are incredibly poor, the wealthy are incredibly wealthy, and you've got these really rich pockets of people. Also, when you look at a lot of these farm murders, which again are horrific, I know, I was a journalist, I went out to some of these farm scenes, I saw the dead bodies. When you look at some of these murders, you often see that it very often emanated from a dispute between owner of a farm and a staff member, right? But this is not the story that's being fed. The story that's being told is like there's this white community that are fighting for their lives, that are defending themselves from a black population that want blood. The thing is, South Africa is actually the complete opposite story. That's the saddest part about this whole thing. When South Africa won its democracy in '94, the whole international media flew to South Africa. All the media organizations expecting a bloodbath. They were expecting a black population that had been subjugated for over, 100 years to uprise and violently chuck out the Europeans, like in Mozambique, where Portuguese were chucked out basically in 48 hours, or they were expecting a civil war. And neither of those things happened. South Africa is a global example of what Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu called the Rainbow Nation, of peaceful coexistence, of forgiveness. South Africa had truth and reconciliation committees where white people who were responsible for apartheid and had committed sometimes awful crimes could share their truth and be forgiven. And the country moved on.
Okay, so we looked at this video. It was a little longer. I cut it down to that point. But once again, white supremacy lies about everything in order to maintain power. That's what they've always done. And really, there's two different types of people who believe this malarkey or garbage, what do you want to call it. One is the people who are trying to gain power, who want to maintain power. And two is the uneducated, the people who don't think for themselves because they don't look out things. They just follow what everybody else says, whatever makes them feel comfortable in their own skin, so to speak. If we study for ourselves and we look at things that are real, white supremacy makes no sense at all. It doesn't make sense for white people. It doesn't make sense for anybody. Because who we're supposed to be is better than anything else. We're supposed to be equal people of God. We're supposed to be, we need to encourage each other's differences, but to embrace them, not to shun them. But we're more alike than we are different. But again, South Africa, the people losing their land, please, these people own most of the land as it is. There's hardly any space for people who are black to be able to take land in the native land that they colonized long before white people ever came along. So, and they're not even forcing white people off the land like they did in perhaps other areas. That was talked about in the video as well. They're trying to recover some of that land, trying to make things more equal. They're not trying to get rid of white people. They're trying to have a country where people are treated equally. It just so happens the white people, and they're only 20%. So look at it. It goes to no boundaries what white supremacy will do to maintain power over people, even when they're in the minority. This is so dangerous. And why in the world do we have to be treating people like this? Because something's wrong inside of us. Because we don't allow ourselves to be who we're supposed to be, we have to put other people down in order to feel better about who we are. It doesn't make any sense. But the problem is it still goes on and it goes on and goes on. And too many people believe these lies because they just hear captions, they just see things. Oh, that's right, but they don't study for themselves. Too many people just support the notion that white people are superior. We're not, but we're not less either. And once again, this is white. This is not. This is brown. You say, it's brown? Yes, it's brown. Very, very light shade of brown, like a beige or something like that. A light tan color if you're looking at paint. It's very, very light. It's pinkish, but it also has brown pigmentation into it. It's very, very light brown. I'm still Caucasian, but I'm not white. And black people are not black either. It's brown. Deep, the darker the brown gets, it appears to be like black, but it's just heavy levels of eumelanin in the body that creates that dark pigmentation. You could say it's black, but it's really not. It's just deep, dark brown. And guess what? It doesn't matter. We are who we are. And we need to embrace each other with our faults, with everything else, and learn to love each other, learn to care about each other, and stop hurting each other just for power and greed. And we have to stop believing in the United States as utopia. The United States is far, far away from that. We are not even listed in the most livable countries, really. Canada is, and several others. Doesn't mean they don't have problems, but we are so far off from them. When will we wake up? When more white people wake up and embrace the people who are not white, and we stand together as a nation, the people who sit here and create the lies will have less and less power. But as long as we sit here on our white privilege and just propagate what we think is true without even knowing what's true, this stuff will continue. And people will continue to suffer. People will continue to have to work ungodly hours to try to keep their family afloat. People will die. Do you care? I hope so. I hope you're one of those that does care. And if you don't, well, then maybe what I'm saying doesn't matter to you. But I hope it does. I hope everyone who listens to this, whether you agree with me 100%, will wake up to something and say enough is enough. Until the next time on American Christian or Christian American. God bless.